Congresswoman Diane Black, filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court in support of religious nonprofits and charities challenging Obamacare's Health and Human Services HHS mandate. Now, in a release, Representative Black said, quote, "It is hard to imagine what could possibly be more pure or worthwhile than the ministry of Little Sisters of the Poor and other religious nonprofits represented in this case. We should be praising their work, not punishing it," end quote. I couldn't agree more. The Obamacare HHS mandate, which mandates that all of these insurances include contraception, including some contraception which can affect abortion or cause an abortion, a medical abortion. Whatever happened to the First Amendment of religious freedom? Look at how crazy this is. The Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic organization of nuns, forcing them to have contraception in their health care plans. Crazy. Joining me now is the Congresswoman from Tennessee. She represents the 6th Congressional District. Diane, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, thank you, Tony. It's great to be with you.
I mean, this is just on its face is absurd that you have to have an organization of nuns going before the Supreme Court to try to protect their religious freedom, to not be forced to include medicines which they find violate their moral convictions in their health care plans.
Well, this is so ludicrous that if you were just to erase what's going on here in Washington and be with a group of people and tell them about what happened underneath of this administration and Secretary Sebelius writing this clause that mandates that these organizations that against their conscience and their religious beliefs, their deeply held beliefs, would have to provide these drugs, you would just say, this is craziness. First of all, as you referenced, the First Amendment gives us the protection of religious freedom, but then there's also the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, which, by the way, was passed under Clinton, and is passed overwhelmingly here in Congress, that also provides protection for our religious freedom. So both of these together are referenced in the amicus brief, and we were really delighted that we had over 200 of our colleagues, bipartisans, sign this brief that went to the Supreme Court today.
You know, just last week I was playing a clip from March of 2010 of Bart Stupak, former congressman, who had kind of brokered the deal with the president on Obamacare over the issue of abortion funding. And I remember the executive order that the president issued stating that basically we would never violate the rights of conscience, and that Obamacare and his whole health care plan would always respect religious freedom. It doesn't appear that is the case at all, does it?
Well, are we surprised at all that this president would say one thing and do another, and that he would twist the truth around? If you like your care, you can keep it. Many, many of the things that the president has said, we know that he says one thing and then does another. Tony, I also want to bring up the fact that churches are exempt from this, but the Little Sisters of the Poor have to prove that they're religious enough to get this exemption. But then even beyond that, we have some organizations, some companies like Home Depot and IBM and Coca-Cola and Exxon that are exempt from this. So you would exempt them from the mandate, but you won't exempt an organization, the Little Sisters of the Poor, who have every right to say you are violating their religious freedom. And this is a group that takes care of our elderly who are poor and have no other opportunities to be cared for. 13,000 elderly they're taking care of. They're saving the federal government from taking care of these people, the money that it would cost the taxpayer. They're doing this out of the goodness of their heart and giving great care. And yet we are going to say we're going to put them out of business because the fine of $70 million a year is something, of course, they can't afford. So all of this is just so silly. It just makes you shake your head that big organizations, big companies like a Home Depot, IBM, or Coca-Cola were able to negotiate with this administration to be exempt from this mandate, but then you're not going to allow the Little Sisters of the Poor. Really?
Well, Diane, I know that this is something you've worked on defending conscience rights, freedom of religion, and I know you agree with me on this. This is the problem when you have big, expansive government. If a government is big enough to provide everything you need, it's big enough to take everything you have, including your most fundamental rights.
So true, and I think that it was Jefferson that made that comment, as you just had, that we have to really guard against the size of government, and it's got to behoove us, separate from this issue, as congressmen, and hopefully we'll get a president that we'll be able to work with to decrease the size of this government that continues to intrude on people's lives, whether it's in this mandate or the mandate of individual insurance or employer mandate. Every time the federal government mandates something on the people, we lose a little piece of our freedom. And for this particular situation of the Little Sisters of the Poor and other organizations like them that have deeply held beliefs to say they don't matter, First Amendment doesn't matter, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 doesn't matter, only this administration matters in them making a decision about who will get those exemptions. So big corporations that give money will get it, but people who truly have a religious, deeply held belief are not going to get it.
All right. Congresswoman Diane Black, thanks so much for